You've hit a dry spell. You're like, do I need to raise my prices? Or, oh, I'm actually afraid if I raise my prices because I'm afraid more people might not come in. Or do I need to lower prices because it's a dry season and maybe the economy's bad? So pricing is tricky. In the beginning of your business, to be honest, pricing is going to be a gut feel. You're just going to have to go to market with some price. And then based on the response that you get and traction that you see, you adjust price from there. What do I think people should pay me for this? And you will naturally find the best price point that feels really good to you. If it's too high, then you're going to have trouble actually speaking to that because there might be some sort of guilt or some sort of thing that feels like it's not resonant. And if it's too low, you're going to resent that client or customer over time because you feel like you need to be paid more. You're worth more. And I've had both happen. I've priced programs too high and then I feel guilty and I can't sell them. And I don't feel like I'm worthy of them. And then I've priced things too low and then someone works with me and I just feel like, not that it's a waste of time. I really enjoy helping people, but it's just, it's like, I know I'm worth more than this. Like this feels like I'm kind of, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. So it's pricing, honestly, is like what feels good to you if you have a service-based business. Welcome to Side Note, the podcast, where we get real about what it takes to actually build something meaningful. I'm sitting down with power players and thought leaders to explore what makes us tick. From deep psychology to cosmic insight, from entrepreneurial wisdom to intuitive, divine feeling breakthroughs. Because success is about way more than what's in the business books. So join me for conversations that'll change the way you think about business, life, and everything in between. We're going to be talking about what to do during a dry spell. So a dry spell in business is obviously, things just haven't gone as you'd expect. Maybe sales aren't as high as you'd like them to be, or things feel tough. Maybe team dynamics are a bit gritty, whatever it is. We all have those moments. And I know that 2024 for me, my business didn't do as well as I thought. It did well for sure. I made 6 figures, but I wanted it to be at 4 times where it was by the end of the year. And I did have certain things that failed. I had a launch that failed. I've had campaigns that failed last year. And, getting married and going on my honeymoon last year was also a kind of a slower down point for business. I still signed clients like leading up to my wedding, but I obviously, when you take that time, when life calls you in a certain direction, you just don't have that much time to dedicate to your business or as much as you would have without those things. So we have to first face the reality of, well, what actually happened in my business and life first off. And let's give ourselves a little grace if we had stuff going on. Last year, not only did, Dave and I get married and we went on like an almost month-long honeymoon, but we also bought a house and I launched a podcast. I launched this. So there were a lot of things that took up my time, took up my brain space, and provided less time for things like selling or networking or getting on stages. So the first step to all of this is looking at, well, okay, what were the factors that contributed to this personally? Then it's important to zoom out, right? So what happened macroeconomically? What did the world look like? Because 2024 was an election year, so it's naturally a slower year. It's not really, especially the end of the year, people are unsure of what's going to happen with the economy. We saw the economy change quite drastically after the election. Things really picked up, and there were other parts where the economy was more sluggish. And obviously, this changes by industry too. Certain industries had a huge down year, others had an up year. So what's going on in that area that might affect your business? For me, I knew clients weren't really going to commit to these large expenses, like bringing on a coach for the entire year to be their, ride or die thought partner when the election is happening and the economy is uncertain. So, these things have a factor too in how people make decisions. And then that affects our customers and clients. So we need to be aware of what are all of the outside forces that might affect their buying decision. And then what are the internal forces of you as a business owner and your energy that could be affecting it too. A lot of people come to me and they're like, what do I do in this dry season of business? Like, let's say they understand all of these different factors, but they're like, well, what can I do about it though? What are my next steps? And what I often see is that people start to look for all sorts of things. They're like, well, maybe I need to redesign my website or rewrite the website, or maybe I need to hire this type of coach, or maybe I need to hire this type of person for my business, or maybe I need to let go of these people. And while all of those things might be top of mind, what I see is that the thing that you really need to do is typically not one of the things that comes to mind in those similar areas. It's actually taking a step back and saying, well, why is it not working? And I see a lot of times the women that I work with, it starts with them. They might not actually believe in the product or service that they're selling, or maybe the pricing feels like too much of a stretch for them. They actually don't believe people will buy at that price point. And so then it's these limiting beliefs that trip them up a bit. It's like, well, let's look at that first before you start changing all sorts of things. And when we start to work through those, then it becomes clear, okay, there's something here about XYZ, whatever topic. Maybe they have a belief that they actually won't receive clients or customers, that they're not worthy of that. That's a really popular one. I myself have gone through that too. I still run up against it consistently here and there. It's like, well, will this type of person come in and work with me? I would hope so. I believe I'm valuable to them. I believe I can change their life and business as a coach. But why aren't they showing up? This actually hits another topic too that I see a lot in the coaching space is coaches will say, well, you have a block around money, or you have a block around your identity as an entrepreneur. And I don't think that's fair to say. I actually do not believe in you being, quote, blocked in any certain way, because we are such complex creatures with so many layers and so many connections between the inside and outside of us that I really don't believe that it's like you have this perfectly cubed black box somewhere that, someone as a coach can help you dismantle. And then all of a sudden you make $1 million. I do not see that. I see that, yes, we might have limiting beliefs around us, but guess what? Those are flexible. And we might have a day where we wake up and we say, screw it, I actually don't feel that way today. And you go for it. And then, a client comes in. Great. But guess what? That same thing might come up in the future. And that's okay. It's just a learning journey, and it's being gentle with the process. And it's stepping back to see what else might be happening here. For me, what I noticed is that I was doing a lot of marketing, putting so much energy into different programs and all these emails, promoting all these programs, that I didn't have energy and space to actually take the clients that I wanted to take. So a big intention for me this year is to not market myself as much. And you probably wouldn't expect hearing that from a marketer, but that's the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to put myself on stages and speak more and do what I do best. And I love this podcast. So I'm going to continue interviewing people and talking about subjects that I see that are really relevant to my clients and audience. Again, another gift that I have, these meditations that I do after the business topic to help you go through a visualization exercise to actually help you get to the root of some of these things, to catch a breath, to get some space. Those are the things I love doing. So I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to make space to create and serve myself and nurture my intuition and tend to my garden and connect with my loved ones. And that allows me to actually take in more clients and accept more clients. I've gotten there through many different ways too. I think one tool that's fun to use is human design. In human design, I'm what's called a projector. And what that is that's someone who has to wait for the invitation. So I'm actually not someone where aggressive marketing in my business is going to help me. If someone's doing aggressive marketing for me, cool. But if I do it, it's so draining, and it will actually resist. It'll put some resistance there instead of me feeling more open and like clients are walking through the door. So I actually need to do less marketing in my business and more showing up for the things that truly light me up and feel natural and easy and fun. But if I was a generator, that aggressive marketing would work really well. Or if I'm a manifesting generator, right? If you're familiar with human design, these other different types, it's just like different ways that we're wired as humans. And there's many different tools that you can use. There's astrology. I've heard of gene keys, matrix of destiny. There's all different things. They're essentially tools and assessments to help you learn more about yourself and how you function. There's also more corporate assessments too. I really like Clifton Strengths Finder. I thought that that was very eye-opening and illuminating for me. It shows you the strengths that are most prominent for you, as well as the things that are a bit more difficult. And so it's really helpful for understanding like what motivates you and what gives you energy. All of this is to say is that this is really important to reconnect with when we're in a dry spell in business or in a dry season, right? Because when you think about, well, what can I do next? The I part is what you need to focus on first. Why I? Start there. Then when you get a better understanding or reconnect to these different parts that you may have forgotten about, then you can focus on the do part of that sentence. And in terms of what to do, that's going to become apparent only when you look at the I piece. Again, for me, I started this year, I was like, I want to do a program on branding and creative direction. That feels really fun. That feels like it lights me up. And then I took a moment and I came back to myself and how I do things. I'm like, okay, I want to speak more. I want to focus on growing the podcast. I know that the clients that I'm meant to work with will come through. They will reach out to me. I don't think they're going to come through an aggressive email sequence. And I know that marketers everywhere are telling you to build a funnel and make sure your funnels are polished and all that good stuff. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That works for a lot of people, but not for everyone. And I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't know if that works for my business. I have some funnels set up and maybe they do. I'm happy to be proved wrong. But right now in my business, I need to spend less time and energy marketing and more time doing the things that puts me in the right rooms with the right people, that allows me to naturally, organically connect with my next clients and does what I do best and what I enjoy. Other questions I get about this are, well, I'm scared. I don't know if I'm going to have the money that will come in that I need to pay my team or invest or XYZ. And I wonder if things are going to pick up. And it's the scared part that you need to start with, right? All of these questions, it's like just start with the first word or two, and then that will point you in the right direction. So I'm scared. I don't know what to do next. Well, let's look at the scared piece first, because this is a big lesson that I would like to put on billboards across the world. If you're emotional, if you feel dysregulated in any way, you don't feel present, you don't feel connected, you feel like your head is like kind of cloudy or just dysregulated, that's what you need to focus on first before you make any decisions, especially if you make any significant decisions like hiring, firing, investments, financial things, big changes that affect your business. Deal with your emotions first. Do what you need to do to process those, whether that's with a coach or a therapist, whether you need to like lay in the dirt in the backyard, go to the beach, have a coffee with a friend, do a little solo trip to get out of the noise for a bit, whatever that might look like for you. That's what you need to do first. Then it's a lot of different things depending on where you're at. Sometimes, your finances push you to get real about certain things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So can you try on the lens of, instead of I'm scared, I don't know what to do next. Instead, process your emotions and then try on, what is this teaching me? What is this telling me? I see a lot of times when there's a financial squeeze in businesses, it's time to get real about how and where you're spending money in your business. Is that really working? Are those expenditures driving revenue in some way? Are they significantly necessary for the business, or are they things that need to go? I worked in Silicon Valley during the tech startup boom of like the twins, and it was madness what companies would spend money on, like lavish holiday parties and bonding things and offsites for teams all the time, where you're going to like a luxury Napa winery. And now, trust me, I love that. Like I'm all for the lavish parties. But when you have that and you're throwing money around at campaigns that don't really do anything and they're for quote brand awareness, but they actually don't land at all, or you're having employees drink in the stairwell and party all the time, it's probably not the greatest use of money. Some of these startups, there was one that would throw a party every single Friday, and it would just be a massive rager starting at 5 p.m. and other people from other startups would come. And can you argue value for that? Maybe. Maybe people networked there, met each other, maybe they made some good hires, but they spent a lot of money doing that and then they failed. So that is a very extreme avant-garde example, but it does push us to see what's happening. And, at the end of last year, I made good money. I didn't make the money that I wanted to make. And I looked at all my operations and software and everything I was paying for. And what I found is actually, on the software end, my costs were pretty low. But I spent a lot of money on certain areas of my business that I wish I maybe pulled back from sooner. And so I started to relocate. Okay, how can I be a little bit smarter about how I run my business? I ended up seeing a couple different software things that I didn't need anymore. Now, of course, they were between like $10 and $30 a month, but still, every dollar adds up. So I nixed those because I was like, I don't use these. Why am I still subscribed? And it was just this push of like, I'm going to get smarter about how I'm running my business. Last year, I introduced so many new things and had so many big things come up. I wasn't in the weeds, but taking a moment to get in the weeds, to look at the data was fascinating. I also saw that most of my coaching profit, those people found me through the podcast or through people I know, through referrals or through networking. And actually very few people came through Instagram. Only a couple of different clients did. And so, okay, now maybe I'm going to spend less time and energy and money putting stuff on social media and actually put more resources behind me showing up on stages and me getting into rooms, just meeting people organically. Not trying to sell myself because that doesn't work for me. Aggressive sales tactics, that's not me. Doesn't work for me, y'all. I'm not a salesperson and I don't want to be. I am the type of person, and I know my system and how I operate is I talk about what I care about. I connect with people when it's clear that there's a connection and I can help them with what I know and how I coach people. It naturally is a fit. It feels like puzzle pieces coming together and it feels easy. That is how my business works. Now, I've had people say, you're living in la la land, or you're living off of referrals and they're going to dry up soon, or you need to be more aggressive about XYZ. But when I come back to myself, when I come back to the I piece, when I process my emotions, I see, actually, I'm doing just fine. And this is what works for me. And if it stops working, then I'll ask myself, okay, what is this teaching me now? What's my next lesson here? So another big question I get is like, okay, well, let's say I've come back to myself. I have things dialed in, but I'm wondering what to do. Is it me? Is it my marketing? What do I need to change? You know that answer. I can help you get to that answer. Typically, I can meet someone, I can look at their marketing, and then I can see the disconnect easily. Well, your marketing doesn't reflect this at all about you or what you offer. Or, you have this like incredible part of your personality and what you love offering to people, or how you love operating your business, but that is totally hiding. No one knows that based on your marketing. So sometimes having a third party to reflect this is really powerful because it allows you to see what needs to change or what needs to be dialed up. When people ask, is it my marketing? It's a tough question. Some people, yes, it is your marketing. Your marketing sucks. I don't mean that harshly. I just mean, there's been points where my marketing has sucked. It's tough because you have to dial in a lot of different cogs in order to have the marketing function work really well for you and your business. It starts with brand. It starts with being really intentional about your mission, your values, your ethics, the tone of voice, the visual identity. If you skip those steps, what I find is that people have to come back to them later because they, let's say they don't do that foundational work. They don't do any sort of visual exploration or creative direction whatsoever. They just say, I like pink, I like white, my website's going to be pink and white. And then they go to Claude to help them with their copywriting. Or maybe they look at some other websites and kind of emulate the tone of voice. What happens is that fast forward a year down the line, maybe a couple months, whatever it is, they get some feedback and they are like, I need to redo my website. But instead of going to find a website designer to redo your website for like $5,000, it's really important to go back to the foundational stuff. And I know it sounds soft. I know it's like, well, why do I have to know my mission just to do my website? And that's where I'm here to say, well, babe, everything's connected and you need to do this concrete foundational work, because if you don't, you're probably going to end up redesigning your website again in another year. And it's going to be a lot of money that you rack up, and it's going to take a lot of time. But when you do this work of looking at these pivotal foundational elements, you start to build a brand that you don't need to change a ton over time. You'll naturally evolve it. You'll tweak a color here. You might tweak the logo there. But in general, things are going to be set for the long haul. And that's what I wish more women entrepreneurs knew and could, really absorb that lesson, which the big brands know. Big brands know this. They've built a presence. They've landed on a brand. And yes, they evolve little things here and there, but they don't stray from that. Because every time you stray from a brand and you totally redo things, you break trust with the audience that you've built already. And that's really crucial. It takes a long time to build trust. And that's the whole point of a brand, is you're building trust. So before you say, well, is it my marketing? Do I need to redo my website? Go back to those foundational things. Do you feel really clear in your mission? Do you feel really clear on your business values? Do you feel really clear about what you offer, your product or your service? That's where you need to focus first. If all of those things feel really concrete, then the next step, in my opinion, is to kind of fact check the products and services piece. Are those things resonating with people? Are you getting 10 out of 10 feedback scores after someone runs course with you, meaning they've completed a program or completed their partnership with you, whatever that might look like? That feedback, noticing like these light bulb moments in that process, that's what's going to show you this is where people really find value. This is why people keep coming back to work with me. That, my dear, that is what you want to amplify. That is your golden nugget core. And you need to get that before you start doing crazy marketing campaigns and redoing your website and hiring a seventh coach and all that stuff. And maybe that's my background. I did product marketing in my journey of marketing, becoming a marketing leader. So I really believe that once you have a clear vision on that and you scale that, then that's when you become a truly magnetic brand. And then you get to do the fun creative direction of really telling that story, that brand narrative, and getting clear about what it looks like visually and what's the personality of the brand and all that fun stuff. Then the website stuff comes in, the marketing campaign stuff comes in, the channel stuff that most people are focused on. It's like they totally skip the first part of the journey that is absolutely necessary for you to understand what you need to do if you've hit a dry spell. So I also get the question of, well, where do I invest next in my business? I just had this dry season. I only have so much money, but I know that I need to invest in certain resources. I also get this question in a different form, which is, do I need to change my pricing? So let's talk about the resources one first. You will understand the gaps of your business more than anyone else. But when I go through this with people, it's very clear, again, if you've done that prior work, I actually desperately need help delegating this thing. And using the Eisenhower matrix, it's like designate, delete, do, and one other. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's a 4-quadrant thing, and you put all the things that you're doing in there. What I often see is that people could delegate more, and they could coach their employees or use their employees in a different way. So they might need to, chat with your team and see, what do you actually enjoy doing? What areas do you think we could grow in? Like really hear from them what they're seeing on the ground. And then understanding, okay, how do you need to change resources here? Maybe someone takes on different or more responsibility. Maybe someone actually isn't like a revenue generating position, or maybe they're necessary to the business. They keep your marketing channels going, but something's not quite clicking. So sometimes you need to do some investigative work on your team and how your business is running to understand where you need to invest. Let's say you have your team solid and things feel like they're running well. You just had a dry spell, but you're wondering where to invest next. Look at the questions that keep coming up in your mind. What keeps you up at night? What's the thing that you're just tired of feeling? I know for me, I was feeling like I was failing at sales. And I know I've talked about how sales just like, I don't know. I love talking with people and building relationships with them. And for me, once I worked with a sales coach, I realized that's the frame of mind I needed to use. Not that I was trying to sell this person, because that feels gross to me, but actually talking to someone, building a relationship with them and saying, I can help you do this, but it's totally up to you. And I found my natural scripts for what the sales part of my business looks like, because I can't not do sales. I have to have conversations with people and put the invitation on the table. Hey, do you want to work with me? But once I realized, hey, this sales part of my business feels really icky. And then I invested in a sales coach to help me figure out that little portion and meet with her. Things felt more elegant and easy and swift. So for me, that was a great investment. For you, see, what are those things that I just don't feel comfortable with, or I'm not confident about, or just are bothering me? That's going to show you where to invest. Now let's talk about pricing. You've hit a dry spell. You're like, do I need to raise my prices? Or, oh, I'm actually afraid if I raise my prices because I'm afraid more people might not come in. Or do I need to lower prices because it's a dry season and maybe the economy's bad? So pricing is tricky. In the beginning of your business, to be honest, pricing is going to be a gut feel. You're just going to have to go to market with some price. And then based on the response that you get and traction that you see, you adjust price from there. This is also going to be different in products versus services. Pricing for products is more cut and dry because you can see what other products are on the market. What is their price point? What are their features? What do they offer versus yours? Where is the value? You have that data and research that can feed into how you price your product. If you're a service, it's a bit different because it's coming from you or your team. Because of that, I see a lot of people do market-based pricing. So if you're a brand agency, then you're going to look at what other brand agencies price at and what they put together. That's okay in the beginning. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think you will eventually have to get to the point where you look at yourself and you look at your team and services and see, what do I value this as? What do I think people should pay me for this? And you will naturally find the best price point that feels really good to you. If it's too high, then you're going to have trouble actually speaking to that because there might be some sort of guilt or some sort of thing that feels like it's not resonant. And if it's too low, you're going to resent that client or customer over time because you feel like you need to be paid more. You're worth more. And I've had both happen. I've priced programs too high and then I feel guilty and I can't sell them. And I don't feel like I'm worthy of them. And then I've priced things too low and then someone works with me and I just feel like, not that it's a waste of time. I really enjoy helping people, but it's just, it's like, I know I'm worth more than this. Like this feels like I'm kind of, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. So it's pricing, honestly, is like what feels good to you if you have a service-based business. Demand will increase over time and then that pricing increases. But I see people pricing too high and too low all the time. So come back to yourself and see what it's at. If you're a product or you're a service, eventually what I recommend people do is that they start to look at how can they make their products or services more valuable? How can they make them more resonant with their customers or clients? And to take inspiration from things outside of their immediate industry. Think outside the box, do things differently, because then you're going to create something that isn't like everyone else. It's not going to be just another cereal box in the aisle. It's going to be something truly unique and independent. And then you're going to have more freedom as a business, as a brand. You're going to resonate with people and you're going to carve your own niche. The last question that I get for this is I am going through a dry season and I just feel like my confidence and self-esteem is down. I don't know why. If everything else is dialed in, why is this happening? And for that one, it's separating yourself from the business for a moment and it's detaching. Because sometimes there are going to be factors that affect our business that we have no control over. If we have too much attachment, if our attachment is too close to our business and we almost feel like we are the business, then it's really difficult to see things clearly and we can let it affect our self-esteem. So here it's detaching. And you can do this in many, many different ways. And we're actually going to do a little bit of this in the meditation that I'm going to release the day after this comes out to show you, this fundamental thing that happens when our businesses aren't doing as well as we want them to. And that's being overly attached to them emotionally. Magical things happen in detachment. And I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not like saying detach from the world and just go live in a cave and then everything will sort itself out, because your business needs you to run, but you are not your business. You are not your brand. Even if you have a personal brand, you are not the brand. So separate yourself. What this looked like for me was that I had the greenhouse launch last year, and I felt like the greenhouse was me in a way. I did all the brand work that I needed to, and it felt really good. And I knew that there was a separation there, but I was so invested in it working, and I was trying so hard to make it work that when it didn't work after the first round of marketing, I felt like I broke down. I felt so defeated. I second guessed if I should be a coach, which is crazy. This is what I meant to do, but I had to check myself. And so if this is coming up for you and you're feeling like this dry spell is hitting your confidence, your self-esteem, then it's time, I say this lovingly, it's time to check yourself. It's time to detach a bit. Come back to you, connect to yourself, rest, take some space, because when you come back to the business, you're going to have clear eyes and you're going to be able to see it for what it is, because you don't feel like you're in it with like one arm being operations and the other arm being marketing and your head all over the place. So with that, I think that covered a lot of FAQs for what to do if your business isn't doing as well as you'd want it to. And know that it's temporary, right? Usually it's temporary. And if you do the things that we talked about in this episode, it will help point you in the right direction. We'll do other episodes in the future of like, do I know it's time to sell my business? When do I know it's time to exit? Should I close my business down? Because those are I need like an hour for each of those. But I hope that this episode gives you some tools, some prompts, some things to think about that allows you to take the next step. Watch out for the meditation tomorrow, where we're going to be going through a really lovely, brief meditation and visualization that allows you to see these things clearly, to detach a bit, to come back to the I, but then also start to see the business as a separate entity. And hopefully in this visualization, I want you to be able to spot, this is what needs my attention. Ooh, that's what I should do. Right? So look out for that. Thank you for being here. My name is Samantha Fackler. You can connect with me on Instagram at growwith_Sam. Please follow, subscribe to the show, and then you can find more about my coaching at www.growwithsam.com. And all those links are in the show notes. So thank you for being here, and we'll chat soon.